Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session on smart procedures at the Department of Defense. I have the challenge of keeping you guys up after the lunch. So let's see how we do that. We are pleased to have you here. The session title is again Smart Procedures at the US Department of Defense. Come to the right session. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So we have a few slides and some live demonstrations that's going to cover our story on how the Department of Defense moved from a legacy system to a modernized system. In addition to the DoD presentation, I'm pleased to have my colleague joining me from Simple A. So there is some new material, there's some new presentation that we'll also do. Quick introductions here. My name is Pradeep Jain, and I'm a content architect. Joining me, I say in guest appearance from Simple A, is Kathleen Gollner. So you know, Joe Gollner and I are listed in the LavaCon session. Unfortunately, Joe was not able to join. He's, as Bruce said this morning, he's with us in spirit, but Kathleen is joining me. So we'll cover both the DoD and some of the work that's based on the same model. Now, introducing my company. So I'm a content architect, or more of intelligent content architect. Started this company 10 years ago called IC Tech, focusing, and we are very passionate about intelligent content. So you'll see that in today's demonstration. What we do, so we have a software that we use for bringing intelligent content to life. And we work with various segments, including the Department of Defense, the publishing segment, journal publishing, book publishing, and also technical publishing. We support various schemas. The DoD schema. Did not work? No, cannot hear. Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah? All right. So we bring intelligent content to life, working in different segments, Department of Defense that you're going to see, scholarly publishing, book publishing, and technical publishing. And of course, behind this, the different standards. So we support the DoD schemas, we support the JATS data, and the DocBook EPUB. Ours is a patented software for doing this whole modernization. The demos that you're going to see today, and we are Microsoft Gold partners, so there is the Microsoft stack involved in this. Now, when we talk about intelligent content, and if you Google what is intelligent content, you'll come up with this normally accepted definition. Actually, this was written by Joe Gollner and Rockley about 9 years ago. Intelligent content is content that's structurally rich, semantically categorized, and therefore automatically discoverable, usable, reconfigurable, and adaptable. That's a lot to expect from intelligent content. The title Smart Procedures is based on that, so hopefully you'll see some of that in the demo. Now, let's cover our learning objectives here. What are we going to learn? So when I come to a conference like this, and quite common in the technical publishing circle, is the notion that Microsoft Word is this ugly thing that gets you the unstructured document. You just can't do anything about it. I hope to change that perception. I hope you will see that Microsoft Word is not your enemy, that you can actually get structured documents out of Microsoft Word. You're going to see intelligent content in action, meaning demos. You'll also see that it's becoming much more mainstream now, that anybody can do it. I remember the story. We used to talk to the Air Force publishing director, and her office actually sort of big window and overlooked the bus stop there. And she would say, Pradeep, I need to be able to bring somebody from that bus stop and have them do my publication work. Right? That's the type of, and that was actually possible. So that's bringing intelligent content to the masses. Obviously, we are dealing with complex documents when it comes to the DoD, and your documents also have a lot of complexity. So how do you take these complex documents and sort of break them down into more manageable requirements? For automation, which has been discussed a lot in this conference, we need XML. The question is, well, how do you bring XML without an XML editing tool? So hopefully you are going to see that. And then a little bit on developing roadmap for cost reduction, for simplification, standardization, etc. So sort of setting the high-level business context here, we are talking about the Department of Defense. So the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, many of the DoD organizations have a similar sort of process for what they call pubs and forms, publications and forms management. And our software is actually used in 4 DoD organizations right now. The case study I'm presenting is from the US Army. The common issue, and that's of course common on the commercial side as well, is the cost of managing the system, cost of publishing documents, and making sure that you're not compromising quality or compliance. So of course, all of the publications, all of the publishing in the DoD is mandated by certain compliance regulations and documents, some of which I'm going to be sharing with you. So that's sort of the high-level business context for this session. This slide has the mission of the Army Publishing Department Directorate, which is essentially to provide support to manage the publications and forms for the Department of the Army. And the volumes here are, well, so when we talk about publications, and we use the term policies and procedures sort of as the umbrella that covers a lot of different types of documents. So that's, some of them are listed here. Your policy directives, your memorandums, your instruction manuals, and so on and so forth. The volumes and the numbers are, the APD manages about 17,000 active publications at any given time, and about 3,000 actions, as they call it. So for example, if they write a new publication, that's an action. If they revise a publication, producing a revised version, that's an action. So in a year, they have about 3,000 publishing actions that they are supporting. And then there is a mandate that the publication cannot be longer than 5 years for it to be current. If it's gone 5 years without recertification, then it's obsolete. So they have to make sure that they keep updating them. I'm going to switch to showing you some of the compliance requirements. As you all know, your documents as well as the DoD documents, there's a lot of complexity in them. Here, the DoD publications are subject to what they call the DAPAM, the DA Pamphlet 2540, the GPO style guide, the DoD style guide, the Army style guide, Section 508 and the WCAG guidelines. And then different types of publications can have their own compliance requirements, almost like a template. This is how we should write, let's say, memorandum. They cannot be more than so many pages, so on and so forth. In addition, the formatting requirements are also very precise. So all documents have to be consistently formatted. We look at some of that. Let me just go ahead and show you here. So this is one of the major drivers in the Army. It's a 200-page document, 198-page, called DAPAM, and it's essentially defining the process for the publishing program. From the stage of how do you research publications, how do you draft a new publication, when you are going to write one, how do you collaborate on that, coordination and collaboration, 2 different steps, publishing, revising, all of that. So there are lots of things that a software system has to be aware of. A companion to this is the AR 2530, which is a 74-page document, and it implements more in detail, specifics on how something should be done. In addition, the federal publications, the DoD publications, are generally to follow the GPO style manual. Now, can you guess how many pages is that? 467 pages. Right. And this goes in a lot of the general details of, well, how should you write, what kinds of terminology to use in what kinds of publication, the cover page, the typesetting process, the copy editing, the lots of details. Not all of it is applicable, but these are the guides that are to be taken into consideration in developing a new system. Let's look at a little bit more on the business side and sort of the cost side of things. So we've actually taken, the nice thing about federal contracting is that these contract award reports are publicly available. So we've actually taken the reports going back to 2006 and the amount of money that the Army spent on their publications and forms program. Just to sort of switch over to those reports here, for example, here is one from 2006, and that's a $178 million contract for management of publications and forms. If you look at the first sort of the 9 years of the publications and forms management program, you'll see it's well over $250 million. Now, that's a lot of money, and I'm going to talk about what all different systems that they had in place. But coming in 2015, they said enough is enough. Okay, we need a more streamlined system. We need something that's not going to have so many moving parts, and they did the proof of concept with us. So the system that they have in place right now has been there for 3 years. You can see that the costs have gone down. This is like throwing the old system as part of the modernization program and then putting in the new system. And the costs have gone down significantly. In fact, the fiscal 2018 cost is lower than 2017. Now, the different moving parts on this system. Yeah, right. Microsoft Word has been used for the authoring of these publications for all this time. Was used back then, is still used today. But in the legacy system, they had a custom tool for converting the Word documents into XML, HTML. That was a pain, and they needed specialized contractors to do that. Because of the so many different types of publications, different types of schemas, once the document was converted to XML, HTML, then it would go to the Arbor text editor, which was not an easy to find resource. Let's say the editors would do the editing, but they needed training on how to work in that coded environment. The formatting of those documents would happen from XML-based formatting system called WinComp, the company no longer in business. And then the content management, the CCMS platform, just for the XML content was the Storia system, which was used by only the XML people. And then the PDF that were created, because there are the Section 508 compliance requirements, the PDFs needed to be corrected using the Adobe Acrobat Pro tools for bringing accessibility, which is also a specialist task. And all of this lived under the umbrella of an IBM content management platform. Now, what was the situation is, well, when you've got so many different software products and specialists working on different pieces, the process was inefficient. Time to publish was too long, in fact, unacceptable. The compliance mandates, as you can see from the different guides that I shared with you, the AR 2530, the DAPM 2540, the GPO, those would require proofreading, the work on part of the editor. So in fact, one of the editors I met, she would print the documents, and then she had like 5 different colors pen. Take the printed document and then mark up different things with different colors so that you can make those kinds of edits. They just could not pull, somebody from the bus stop because, well, you needed the specialized technical communication training, you needed familiarity with the XML, you needed the tool, and the training could be more than 2 months easily. In Washington, D.C., then you have the federal contractors and people working on site, providing support in the publishing process. So there were always some people available for doing the editing work, for doing the proof, for doing the corrections, for doing the compliance checks, for doing the Section 508 changes. Costly. The other thing is that you have these 7 different systems, and one of them, when one of them fails, it may not work with the other one. So you have to go through some kind of a manual process to be able to take material from one and use it in the other. All of this essentially led to the fact that they were not able to meet the compliance mandate. The compliance mandate, one of them, for example, is the time to publish. So you have a certain window from the receipt of the publication to actually delivering it on the website, and that was not being met. So what we've implemented is a Microsoft Word-based environment for, for the editing, validating, converting, validating, formatting. So you don't have the different applications. We've added tools for compliance with the DAPM and alignment with the GPO style guide. Some of those I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. And welcome to Intelligent Content. Now, one of the things that we like to say about our presentation is that we we bring intelligent content to life. So it's actually something concrete. It's something that you can see. It's part of Microsoft, well, it's a plugin to Microsoft Word. I'm going to get to demos. I'll do the quality and the compliance checks demos. I'll do the formatting demo. I'll talk about the editing features and incorporation of changes in publication, what those like in the interest of time. But at this point, are there any questions? Go ahead, please. Go ahead. The publishing of all of the documents is in PDF and HTML formats. PDF and HTML. Most of the documents are published in both formats. And now some of the documents are also being published in the EPUB format. $17,000 totals is the total number of documents. They are from the past. On an ongoing basis, what gets published now is in PDF and HTML. Okay, so here is my sample document for this demo, and this is this is an Army regulation. I'll do a little walkthrough. So you have your cover page here. A summary of changes anytime you make revisions. This information that they call title page, one-page material, and then the chapters, figures, tables, and the required references, appendix. So fairly normal publication, glossary, etc. Now, this is Microsoft Word, and all the same, but only difference that you see here is that we have the intelligent content tab. So when I go to the intelligent content, I have tools that are specifically designed for or tailored for that type of publication. So there are different types of publications and different structures. This one is a regulation. So a regulation is to have a cover page, summary, title page, and different components such as chapters, sections, paras, appendix, glossary, as you saw. Now, the big thing, and we talked about intelligent content as being, structured document. The big thing that we are bringing in here is the structure. So when I click on the structure button, you can actually see that here. And let me go ahead and do a little sort of a walkthrough of the structure as well. So our software will scan this Word document and infer this structure. Okay. So we have the cover page here, we have the summary, we have the title page, we have the publication body, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, we have the appendix A, appendix, glossary, and the version information. This is quite granular. Once again, this is the DoD schema, but we support DITA as well as JATS and other schemas as well. So if I'm going to look at, certain parts of this document, for example, let's just go ahead and click in here, and then you can see that it points me to the location element. And then if I go somewhere else in the document, let's say here, that's the security element. The granularity of the XML, and I think we understand the importance of it. So for example, if I look at the chapter 1, within that you can see We have para consisting of main paras and sub paras. And let's just go ahead and take a look at this one. So there is a key that we are capturing, and things need to be tagged at this granular level in order for us to bring the automation of quality control or the automation of compliance. Otherwise, we don't know what is what. Okay. Now, I think the natural question that you might ask, well, how did you get this structure? And I'm going to show you that's pretty easy. You are not doing this manually. You're using the software. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we do that. So on the top of the toolbar, you see the different buttons. So we have the cover, summary of change, title page, publication, and you see that they are checked. Also, you see that in the structure, my validation, my items are all checked in here. Let's go ahead and go to the title page. When I double click on it, it's taking me there. And let's just go ahead and remove the XML markup on the title page. So when I do that, first of all, you can see that in here, my document now has become invalid because the title page was a required element in the document. Secondly, you can also see that the title page checkbox has disappeared from here. So that's reminding the user that your title page is not tagged in this document. Tagging it is pretty easy. I just click on the button. The software finds the beginning and ending. In this case, it's pretty easy because all the other items were tagged. But here, so now we have the cover page, the summary, the title page, the publication, so on and so forth. And you can see that it's now marked as valid. Now, this structure is key to the automation and the compliance checks that I'm going to show you. I'm going to go ahead and close the structure window so we can actually now focus on this one, the compliance checks. Now, go back to our DAPAM and our GPO style guide. What's happening here is we've taken a number of requirements from the checks and incorporated them in the tool here. So you see there are requirements related to the publication, related to the front matter, related to the body, to the titles, to the numbering, paragraphs, glossary, and appendix, and the cross-linking references. Simply clicking on run would run the checks on the document, and this is I think it's about a 12-page document, fairly easy, just like a spell check that you can run at any time. So here, the software comes back and shows me that, well, anything that's highlighted in the hyperlink format is an issue, something that the user should look at. Okay. So we are highlighting here some things in the front matter. We are highlighting things here in the title, in the numbering. And let me just go ahead and click on them. So when I say date format, it's taking me to the date format, giving me an explanation that in the cover page, your date format is not proper. Because, well, the dates that you have in the cover page is what was the date that this document was published and what was the date that this is effective. Okay. So that's the issue identified by the software. Looking at the next one here is, well, what they call the sub-paragraph consistency. So one of the requirements they have is, let's say you have, 4 sub-paragraphs. Either all of them, provide title for all of them, or provide title for none. You can't have 2 with titles, 2 without titles. So in this case, we have A, C, D, and E, where you can see the title. In the case of B, the title is not provided in the right format, in the italic format. So the software has identified it, and because you're working in Microsoft Word, it's actually pretty easy to make the corrections. Just go and make it italic, and we also have tagging of just this section. So you could rerun the checks. Another one here is the ID check. So when I go ahead and click on this, the software is taking me to 3.3, and let me just scroll back here. So you can see it's 3.1, which has table 3.1 and no 3.2. So there might just be an apparent problem, or there may be something bigger. We don't know. Reference order. So for example, the listing of the references is to be in alphabetical order. So you have the listing of related publications, AR 70, 73, 672, so on and so forth. But when you come to this part, you see that it changes from AR 750 to DAPM to the AFAS, and the AFAS is out of order. So these are the types of issues that our software catches. It helps in speeding up the compliance, makes it possible from the software that people are already using. There's a number of other checks. Actually, this regulation alone is subject to more than 200 checks. I cannot show you all of those in the session here, but if we just look at the list here, for example, there are checks about tables and figures consistency. There are checks about how you cite publications and forms within your document. There are checks about what they call the ABCA, which is abbreviation, brevity code, and acronyms. So how do you use abbreviations and acronyms and brevity codes in your documents? There are checks about consistency of writing style. Certain words are not to be used, certain hyphenation, in certain contexts. All of those are part of the software. Going to the formatting piece. So let me actually take this document, and let's just go ahead and close this. Let's unformat this entire document. So I'll go and just make it completely draft, so you can see. Now, even with the removal of the formatting, remember, because in the intelligent content, we have the separation of formatting from the structure. So our structure is still there. And let's go ahead and take a look at that. So, right, all of the structure is still in the document. So we are able to apply a style sheet to this document and render the precise formatting. Let's go ahead and click on the publish button. And this is the use of an XSLT on the XML behind the Word document to create a properly formatted document, which can then be saved as a PDF. In the publish section, there are other buttons as well for publishing in XML, publishing in HTML, publishing in EPUB. So this this should take only a few seconds while this is running, if anybody has any questions. Go ahead, please. So several different document formats on the output side. On the output side, yes. Right. Good.
Just imagine that each input has to be separate coded for the structure that I have to
Yeah.
knows compliance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we talk about the concept of a master content model. So there is a common framework uh, that's supporting the different schemas. And each document type, for example, a policy document versus a memorandum, there are some specialization and there are rules applicable to each one. Right? So that's how the architecture is.
In the end user program?
We do have some end users that program that. There are really three parts of the software. There is the XML automation, there is the checks, and then there is the formatting. And each one sort of requires a different skill set. The formatting is XSLT, the automation XML is modeling. Okay, but we do have some end users that do it. You go ahead.
Do you play nice with other plugins like IS4 Talks or content use? Do you know if you guys play okay with them?
With which other plugins?
Smart Talks, it's a content reuse added plugin for Word.
We should play well with them. We've worked with other plugins, for example, a reference manager plugin. Okay. We should play well with them. I don't know specifically about the Spontox. So here is the formatted publication according to the precise formatting requirements. So we have the summary of change, we have the title page, we have the table of contents, we have the chapters, so on and so forth. And this, this also has the XML structure in it, so you've not lost, what you had in the draft document. In addition, you can also take this and then publish it to, for example, the PDF format, the EPUB format, right from here. Now, the other demos that that we have available, not able to show it today, but for example, let's say you have a 300-page document, and your manager comes and says, well, I want you to change 7.2 to 9.3. Now you know what's going to happen to this. You change 7.2 to 9.3, you're actually changing a lot of stuff in that publication. So we have something in the software that helps with that. So there's features for renumbering, there's features for moving one item from one place to another. Okay, it'll tell you the implication of the move before you actually do that. The other very time-consuming task was the DoD has a process for managing and incorporating changes. So for example, a change might come in the form of an instruction that says item 7.2, change the word A to B. Okay, that used to be a manual process. But because of the XML now behind this document, and because of the fact that editors can work in the document, the software is able to do that, incorporate that type of changes, which they call administrative changes or substantive changes. I'm just going to take you through some of the screenshots here and show you, so for example, the checks for the ABCAs, which is dealing with the abbreviations brevity code. The left side is the fragment from the DAPM saying what are the rules applicable to ABCAs. The right side is the screenshot from the software. Similarly, for publications and forms references, if you're citing a DoD publication versus a non-DoD publication, there are rules about how you should cite them, and the rules, the checks are built in. Writing style, so for example, they don't want you to use the word ASAP, say as soon as possible, or the word ATTN, call it attention. the proper Oxford comma, and hyphenation in certain contexts, all of those rules are incorporated in the software. Tables, figures checking for completeness, for proper alt text, for section 5 word compliance, that's in the software. And then this is what we just saw. In summary, the benefit from this approach, the solution is you have a streamlined process with simplified single tool support, much reduced publishing cycle. Compliance is improved because you look at the tools as an aid. That's going to speed up the compliance, as well as you don't have to send it to somebody else to check the document. And of course, cost reduction that we saw in the numbers. So at the end of it, the director did give us a nice testimonial and hired some people from the staff. I'd like to invite my colleague Kathleen now to talk a little bit about the collaboration and the work that we are doing at Mayo Clinic.
Thank you. Don't touch that part. Okay. Hi, I'm Kathleen. I am a content engineer at SimpleA. And today I'm going to chat a little bit about the work we've been doing at the Mayo Clinic, especially with respect to how we've been leveraging the IC Tech tool that Pradeep has spoken to in our implementation of a master content model. So to give a little bit of background, the Mayo Clinic project that we've been doing at SimpleA, oh, it looks like some of my slides got a little slanty. Oh well. So we've been working with the Mayo Clinic for some time now. Sorry, is there an echo? Keep it closer. Okay. How's that? Okay, thank you. So at A, we've been working with the Mayo Clinic for some time now to help them better tackle the issues they've been having dealing with omni-channel content. This is not an uncommon problem for organizations right now. Plenty are feeling the burden of trying to produce content for many different channels, and a growing number of channels at that. With respect to the Mayo Clinic, they did have a few different challenges that they were tackling, but there are three that stand out for our discussion today. The first of which is that they were heavily reliant on manual copy and paste to move their content from Microsoft Word, their primary authoring environment, to their web CMS. The second is that as they were expanding to additional channels, especially some very specific and heavy channels like voice assistant applications, they were having to do a lot of additional content development and production work to tailor the content for that channel's specific requirements. And then lastly, they had a couple of departments that were producing content with a considerable amount of overlap, but they had no means of sharing or leveraging each other's content. So in many ways, these three challenges all boil down to the same essential problem of content structure. They have a number of different content structures at different stages of their content lifecycle across their enterprise, but no means of drawing connections between those different content structures such that they could better coordinate and automate their content. So for instance, if you think about the content development process, we have a number of different departments producing a number of different content types. Each of those content types in different and isolated content templates. They had no means of specifying the relationships between the different pieces of content in each of those templates. Likewise, they didn't have a way of relating those pieces of content to their structural representations in other downstream applications in production. They didn't have a means of saying these pieces of content are represented in our web CMS in these ways. So the question becomes, how can we build those connections? How can we make them explicit so that we can better coordinate and automate the flow of content across the content lifecycle? And the answer to that question is the master content model. The master content model is essentially an orchestration layer. We try to define an abstract representation of our content that captures the content components and their representations across our entire enterprise and content lifecycle. Essentially, what I mean by that is we specify how our content components are shaped across all of our content assets. And then we explicitly specify the mapping of how those content components relate to our different structural representations across the content lifecycle. It's a supermodel, essentially. And what that will mean is once we have all our content pooled together in this common representation, we've already made explicit all the connections with the different downstream representations, so we can readily automate the flow of content into our different production and delivery tools. So when we were doing the design work for the Mayo Clinic master content model, we found that the structure of their content was naturally aligned with the topic-oriented structure we see in DITA. And as such, the master content model for the Mayo Clinic is tightly aligned with the DITA specification. Once we have the model designed, we have to start putting it into action. And in order to do that, we have to find a way of capturing the content from the development process and getting it into our MCM representation, so then we can leverage those explicit connections with the downstream production systems. With Mayo, we had a particular consideration in that regard, and that was that the Mayo Clinic uses Microsoft Word as their primary environment for authoring, editing, and reviewing content, and that was something that was unlikely to change. Consider, for instance, that among our reviewers were doctors, practicing doctors, who were very, very unlikely to be willing to learn and adopt new and unfamiliar tools. We came to realize very early on that we were going to have to stay in Microsoft Word and find a way to automatically transform the content in Microsoft Word to our master content model representation. And so began our partnership with the IC Tech team. For the last little while, we've been conducting a proof of concept to explore the application of IC Tech's tools in the Mayo Clinic environment. The application looks very much like the demonstration provided for the Department of Defense, but in the case of the Mayo Clinic, we are, of course, using Mayo Clinic content, as well as the Mayo Clinic style guidelines and authoring templates. And the output of the process is aligned with Mayo Clinic's master content model XML. So this is a sample of a Mayo Clinic document. We can see on the right-hand side there the same structure pane from the earlier DoD demonstration, as the IC Tech tool has pulled out the structure of the document. And then in the XML that is produced by the IC Tech tool, that's very small, so you can't see, but I promise it is aligned with the Mayo Clinic master content model of XML. So this proof of concept has demonstrated that we can effectively take Mayo Clinic content from their Microsoft Word authoring environment and convert that into our master content model XML. And this is an exciting and really valuable step forward for the implementation of our master content model, because it means we can take the content from the author's familiar authoring environment and get it into our abstract orchestration layer, such that we can facilitate the kinds of mappings to the downstream systems that we want. So more explicitly, we can take our content from Microsoft Word and move it into the Sitecore Web CMS, automatically doing away with the manual copy and paste process. We're also in a position to allow different departments to draw from the same pool of shared content and likewise allow other downstream applications like our voice assistant software to draw from the same pool of content as well. So I realized that I covered an awful lot in a very short amount of time. There are a couple resources I can point you to if you're interested in a little bit more. On the simpleA.com website, we have a white paper about master content models. And there's also a webinar which has a wider discussion of the master content model implementation at the Mayo Clinic. So with that, I will hand things back to Pradeep to wrap up.
Okay. So I think I have to now come back to the challenge and wake you guys up. So let's see. So we started saying, well, Microsoft Word is not your enemy. And I think maybe you'd say not necessarily, right? There are options. I think you saw intelligent content in action. And hopefully you realize that this is not all that complicated to use. Now, well, look at this. Okay, so you can do intelligent content, right? There's some hesitation there, but you can do intelligent content. When we look at the complex document requirements, I think we have to take sort of one baby step at a time. One of the things with the Department of Defense, it was overwhelming. You've got so many documents, even listing them is 5 pages. So we said, well, what are the key things that you already know? Let's go back to them. Let's cross-check them against your guidance and make sure that we cover the basics. And then we added more and more. You saw that an XML workflow is possible without an XML editing tool or with intelligent content tool. And then hopefully on the roadmap for cost reduction, every single organization that we've worked with, they've begun with a proof of concept. So that's a baby step, taking a few of your documents, seeing how does it all work and how does it get you structured content. Now, I do have a number of resources available that I'm happy to talk to you about. Kathleen and I are both available, today and tomorrow. I think one that I would point out here is we have a 1-hour video, and we are going to make available this slide as well. The 1-hour video is overview of how our software supports the DoD schema, the DITA, the JATS, and the book publishing schema. So that's available from the link here. And finally, we are a Microsoft Gold partner, and we work worldwide with organizations in scheduling proof of concepts and workshops at the Microsoft Technology Center, because obviously you're also seeing the Microsoft stack here. So we'll be happy to talk to you about a proof of concept for your organization. I think we have a few minutes that we can open up for questions if there are any questions. We've been supporting even going back to before 2007. Generally, these days, 2007 to 2019, that just came out 2 weeks ago, and we are supporting that. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for your time. Oh, go ahead. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Generally 2 months. It can be more or maybe a little bit less, not too much less, but 2 months is a fair estimate. Exactly. Exactly. So you get, well, the team, I mean, we work closely with you. So once you do the proof of concept, then you can see, well, okay, I'm really, it's taking my documents. I know it's delivering the XML. It's checking for my rules. It's giving me the right positives. So you experience it on your own. And then you decide what else is needed for full production. Yes, sir.
So does this work with greenfield systems or are you guys that?
Does this work with the what? Okay. So we have people using it with the SDL and TriSoft. Okay. Not sure about Windchill. Yes. This is all on-premise. Yeah, we have a cloud version as well. We integrated with Office 365, but Word is really not so rich on the cloud yet. So right now, it's really all on the desktop on-premise. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Okay, go ahead.
One question.
Okay.
Sorry.
We have a couple minutes.
The ability to code the compliance checks and style guide checks. What is the programming behind that?
Yeah.
What skills are required?
What skills are, so we really have,
Building those checks.
right, that's a good question. When you look at something like this, there are really three parts to it. First, you have to bring the XML automation. So that's a XML modeling skill. Somebody with familiarity with XML schema, because we use the XML schema to guide the automation, the tagging. Number two is the rule set. And that falls in two areas. Number one is we have a configuration. So if your rules are similar, then you can configure that using an XML syntax. Okay. The second part of that is if it's a brand new rule, my documents now have to be formatted or checked for reverse order. That would require an API. And generally, you would ask us. The third part is the formatting. And the formatting is done with an XSLT. So people with XSLT will find it very reasonably familiar. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.